electrons are electrons that tends to complement the protons. So when there is a proton, there should always be an electron because they are complementary. Without that, there is no base for electricity. There is no base for electricity because when the positive cannot fire up with the negative, there tends to be something that is not working well. So in terms of science itself, there tends to be an attractive mode. The attractive mode is what brings up the electricity. And I tell you, when there's a positive mode at the top and there's a negative mode at the below part, at the below part of it, there tends to be what is known as the consistent or the structural formation of the magnet. The structural formation of the magnet has to do with the positive and the negative. And then the neutrons, the positive and the negative. Why we call them the neutron is that in an atom, after an atom is being exposed, after a particle is being exposed, the positive ions or the positive processes or elements in the atom starts moving gradually to the center, and the negative starts moving gradually to the center. And we observe definitely that as the protons are moving from one of the edge from other of the edge to a concentrated center, or where they are supposed to meet together, there tends to be an ionic process. And this ionic process is not fluid ionic process, but metal ionic process. And this metal ionic process tends to be electromagnetic in the magnet. But the magnetic power may not assume a total magnetic power because it's just one magnet. And so what happens is that a neutron is formed. And a neutron is what gives the magnet, the metal, the magnetic property. That is why magnets, because of the neutrons. And I want to say something categorically clear here, that the protons and the electrons are viable parts of the atom. And without the electrons and the protons, there might not be a neutron. So the viability of a proton and the science and the New Age science gives us an enlightenment and a broadened sphere of science in its entity. So we are going to talk about the two magnets this morning. One magnet in the left side and the other one in the right side. Here you can see something here. There tends to be a proton here, a neutron here, and an electron here. A proton here, a neutron here, an electron here. There tends to be something that shows an interactive process between these two ions, between these two metals, these two magnetic metals. The interactive process is that the protons interact with the electrons here, and the protons up here interact with the electron down here, and the neutrons interact with the neutrons. And then we have an interactive power system here. This is what they call, what is it called? It's called the coefficient power system. The coefficient, the derivative power system. And this derivative power system is as a result of the protons and the electrons and the neutrons all attracting one polar plus attracting a polar negative from the other magnet. And at the other pole, and the positive polar of that other magnet attracting the negative polar of the other magnet, and the electrons associating with themselves. In science, we don't call this actually fighting. It's called an attractive process, or what is called an association. And this association tends to be what? A conductive process. And this conductive process is what is called as a Meshy cloud system, Meshy cloud network power system. And there is a derivative in this. The derivative is that something comes out of it. And what comes out of this network process, or this network atomic process or atom process, is known as electromagnetic field. The electromagnetic field can actually be, it's an essence of these attractions or these associations. Electromagnetic field comes from associations of protons and neutrons, and protons and electrons and neutrons, and when they all come together, all associate together, we find we have electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic field tends to possess power, electricity, and this electricity, they are not in the initial, they are in the static form, but as the interaction moves, it tends to be in a relaxed and a movable form. And this, what we know as this static electromagnetic force, is that in the initial, it tends to pulsate. And I can tell you that all these electrons, protons, neutrons tends to have wave systems, and these wave systems are the systems that are pulsating. You can see there that we have wave systems, power wave systems, electron wave systems, and neutron wave systems, and proton wave systems. And when they interact, these wave systems interact. And then when this wave system interact, we have the electromagnetic field. And this electromagnetic field is a wave system. Wave system that can be transmitted from one point to another. A wave system that can be transmitted from one point to another. And then we have what we call a conductor. A conductor or a converter, they are conductors, but we have a converter. The converter readily converts this electromagnetic field to what? To electrical current. The power in this electromagnetic field converted to electrical current. And when they converted it to electrical current, what happened? This electrical current is disseminated or given out through given to the appliances, or taken into what? Into the motherboard. It's effective towards the motherboard because it leaves the power system and goes into the motherboard of the appliances, and then current is taking the power. I don't call it the power shockers. I call it a power head. It gets in there and gets into the motherboard, and it is instructed where it has to go into. We can talk about something in this Meshy cloud power interactive conductor system, or Meshy cloud power interaction systems. We have something integrated into it, and what is integrated into it is known as modular power system, or modular site, really, or modular dispensations, or modular and insight of modular. Here we have the I transfer, the I power, the I homes, the I factory, and the I galaxy. We have a window here actually that tells us about what? It tells us about modular, about I transfer. When we click I transfer, those waves here that you see can be transferred to another country. When you click I transfer here, those waves you see here, they are electromagnetic waves, and these waves can be transferred into another country. When that house in that country has this kind of system, or has a relay system. If they don't have this kind of a system and they have a relay system, if you have a big system of this as a plant, and the houses around it, they don't have this. They may have a relay system, a board relay system. And if they have a board relay system, the eye transfer can transfer these waves to them so they can have electricity without having cables, without having cables. Yeah. And then we have eye power. Eye power tells about the power systems, tells about the voltage and all that is given out. And we have eye homes. Eye homes tells about the homes that are connected to these power systems or the power system. And then we have eye factory. Eye factory tells us the factories that are connected and the offices that are connected to this system in the neighborhood or the states or the country. And then we have eye galaxy. Eye galaxy tells us all the galaxies that are enjoying or feeding from this power source. And then we have what is known as the play modus or play modus. We have the rewind, the stop, the play, the record, the fast forward, and the loop systems. These are all used to stop the power system. If we rewind, we might rewind in eye perception, and we might go very far in about 10 years ago or 20 years ago when the electricity was. If we want to experience different types of electricity mode that we had before, we can do that. And if we want to stop the electricity, we can stop it. If we want to go forward, we can forward. If we want to record electricity, we can record electricity and keep the electricity for a time. And if we want to fast forward, we can fast forward electricity. We can fast forward electricity to a time ahead of us. And if we want to loop, looping is the best thing in electricity because it never ends. The electricity thread never ends, it loops. So when we don't want to play with any of all this, we just keep the looping on, so it loops forever. And then we have what is called the automated or authorized and authentication card. Every modular power system must have, all plant or country plant must have what they call authenticated system, an authenticated card, so that someone doesn't go there and destroy everything. So when you keep the card in, it tells you that you are a good technician, approved. So you can actually look at it and know something. If anything went wrong with the system, nobody can come there and work without an authenticated or authorized card. And you might also need an authorized card too, because the authorized card in the relay station or the relay houses need an authorized card too, because through an unauthorized card, that shows that you've paid for your modular or paid for your modular power or your Meshy cloud power, and you have the privilege and the power to get your powers. We've talked about the Meshy system, we've talked about the modular system, we've talked about eye transfer of powers. I think you've enjoyed it, and I know that it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I know that you'll love to get integrated into the study. As you get into this study, I know it has been developed, and I know that there might be some upgrades sometime, but in terms of this, it's totally perfect, and I might upgrade it sometime. So we are all welcome to the modular world of interactions, and today we talked about Meshy. We talked about this. We talked about Meshy power interaction. Meshy power interaction or modular power interaction. Bye-bye.